Alright now y'all, welcome back for another video. I'm going to show you the difference between the more expensive tools and the budget tools. And if you want to see something like that, then this is the video for you. Now, if you could help me out by liking and subscribe, because I'm trying to get monetized and pay some of my bills, that would be much appreciated. Alright, let's get on started here. I'm going to start with the least expensive ones. This was a custom made off of Etsy. If you like his information, leave a comment below and I'll get you his information. I had this one custom made. It uses box cutter blades, but more importantly, it's designed to fit your hand more like a pencil, so you can control instead of using a regular box cutter, which is just basically a square. I think they're running about $60 that I paid for that one. I use this one quite a bit. This one runs around $27. What I like about this one is, as you can see, the blade play. If you tighten up the screw here, it takes all the blade play out of it. So as you're cutting, your blade doesn't wobble like some of the least expensive ones, like this one. You know, there's nothing to do. The blade's gonna wobble on this one. And these run, I think, about $27. They're not too expensive, but you can adjust that. You break off a blade, tighten it up. This is another tool that's not very expensive. I use this one every now and then. The blade actually spins as you're cutting along. We'll get into the more expensive tools now. This is a round knife. This was made by Terry Nipshield. Now the difference between this one and most of the ones you'll see, this one runs $275. But the difference is, you'll see the blade. See how thin it is? Some of the budget ones you'll get will be thick and then have a beveled edge at the tip. This one starts here and tapers all the way down. The thinner it is, the easier it is to slice through your leather, and the better cut you'll get too. With something like this, you almost don't even have to sand. The cut would be so fine. But it's Terry Nipshield. Right there in the middle. I don't know if you could see that. I have a couple of his blades. This one and this one is made by the same guy. And this one's beveled on both ends. It's used for skiving. But you can see the work and the quality put into something like this versus a least expensive tool. And I'll show you a little bit of skiving here in a minute. So these two tools are from the same maker. They're a little hard to get, but if you could find something, Leather Wranglers, I think it's another company who makes some really good stuff. So these would be the two least expensive tools, and this is the more expensive ones here. Now this one isn't too bad, but I really like it. It's more of a Japanese style of cutting, and the way you use it would be to hold it at an angle like this, So the tip here is into your leather as you're cutting it. So if you're cutting along the line, it would be more like this. And you just follow your line. And then when you come around a corner, you basically just work it until you get the curve cut. And you could find a whole variety of different ones of these. But there again, you can see how defined the point comes down to. That is basically the important part. But you can also see the amount of work put into the blade itself too. And these aren't too expensive. I want to say this one was maybe around $100. Now for the skiving. Skiving is one of the important things you'll have to do. As you see, you see right here, this line going across here. Now I did not skive this piece when I did this inlay, and that's what happens when you don't skive it. Which is okay for me because this was something for myself. But normally, I'll show you today when I am going to skive, so it doesn't show up. As you can see, this is the piece right here. And you see how thin it really is, and it still shows up. So skiving is pretty important for things like this. For edges, if you want the edges to be thinner, you'll have to skive. Besides cutting, skiving is the next important thing. And I'll show you about this one. So we'll get into the skiving tools. This one I don't use the skive as much as I do is getting into like some of the detail work of, you know, just cutting out small pieces or getting into areas. And this one's not too expensive either. I believe it was made by Palmetto. I don't. I have some of their stitching awls. Now this one too wasn't too terribly expensive, but I mean you could see the quality put into the blade itself. They do tell you the Rockwell hardness of it is 64 to 65, except the problem with that is I don't know what steel it is. So knowing how hard it is doesn't really help you unless you know the type of steel it is. But that Rockwell hardness is how hard the steel and how brittle it is. But again, as you can see, you know, the effort put into it. This one itself too was not really expensive. It was around a little over $100, 100 and something. Now these two, you get into the really more expensive ones. This one I believe was like $2 something. Peachtree, I think was the website. This is one of the better ones, my more favorite one. Now the company I bought this from does bookbinding stuff, so they use like a real thin leather like you see here for covering books, but you have to skive and cut, so they make excellent cutting tools and skiving tools. I would highly recommend this one. If you're looking for a good skiving tool and all you need is one, I would definitely get this one out of all the rest of them. And the next skiving tool is Charter Made, guy in South Africa. Now this does have two bevels. It comes from here and then another bevel here. But what he uses is a rounded edge here. And what you'll do with that is you'll cut, when you're skiving with his, you'll cut an edge into the leather with the rounded tool. Just to get started. And then you'll come back with it like this. And the theory of this rounded edge is, you know, rounded knife slices better than just straight. So as you're coming back, this curve allows you to dig into the leather by slicing it first, and then the rest of the blade takes it off. It's an excellent knife, but they run probably $275, I think $300 almost for some of his tools. But this would be an excellent choice too. The difference between these two would be this one right here probably take a little bit more practice, but to get into it, especially with the handle and the angle, the way it's shaped, you can hold it up higher versus this one. You gotta hold it down a lot lower to your leather to get your angle. You're gonna be like this to get it cut. So that secondary angle on this one actually gets you up a little higher off. But no matter what tool you get for skiving or cutting, you're gonna have to practice with it to get used to it. Now another tip for cutting and laying out, I use a digital caliper. This is probably the most important tool I use, and I use this quite a bit. You can use it in millimeters, switch over to inches. I use it quite a bit in millimeters because that's where leather's measured in. You can measure leather. More importantly, I use it to lay out. So I've got the distance between here and here. If I measured that and split it in half, then I know what the center of this is. And then lay it out. But a lot of times I use it to measure the edges. So if I need to go like 5 millimeters from the edge, then I know I've got 5 millimeters. I use it to set up sometimes if I need my calipers. Let me grab something real quick. If you use digital, let's see. I can't find them now. Here they are. Sometimes I use these for layout too. You can use it to set these up. You can use a ruler either way. But sometimes getting a ruler into certain places isn't as easy as just using these. Like I said, you can put a ruler along here, get your 5 millimeters. But you can get your thickness from it quick too. I've got a CNC machine, so using these is something I do quite a bit. So let's do a little bit of skiving and show you how some of these tools are used. So I'm going to skive this piece down and see if it fits into here. Now I showed you some of these tools and the prices and some of the things, but you really got to practice with them. You really got to take them out, cut leather, play around with it, get the technique down. Well, like I said, if you want this guy's information to make one of these, he did mine custom, so he doesn't have them out there. Otherwise, I'd just give you the link, but just leave a comment if you do want one. This one too, I got this from Artisan Leather Supply. And for skiving, you're going to need something like a piece of glass, a piece of granite. I'll show you a little bit about this one real quick before we get into it. Now, when it comes to box cutter blades, as you can see, it's a lot easier to hold this than it is to actually hold a box cutter, because you're holding it more like a pencil. You can run it across here. And these are thick enough to where the blade itself will stay straight as I run it along, versus using a ruler, which is a little bit more difficult, especially if you're going to cut something thick like this. You need it to be straight. If you're cutting something a little thinner like this, you can get away with using a ruler. So let's see. Let me get my piece of granite. I'll show you about skiving. Here we go. Now, the trick about these is they're not really expensive. I got this from Weaver Leather, but the problem with them is the shipping actually costs more than the stone itself. So if you catch it during their Black Friday sales when shipping's free, or any time when shipping's free, buy one. Like, I think there was like 20 bucks for it. So it does, like I said, shipping is quite expensive. I'm gonna go ahead and use this one. Now, as you can see here, this just glides along here. And that's what you want. You want the whole piece just to pick off like that. You don't want it just to shred. I don't have a lot of room to skive this, because there's just not a lot of room on the see, as it's just coming off here. You'll have that problem when you're just trying to take a hair off. It becomes very difficult versus trying to take a lot off. But as you can see, I don't have a lot of space to do a longer skiving. But with these, you're going to hold your angle. It's going to be a lot lower than the other one. Now this type of leather is a little bit more difficult to skive. It's not vegetable tan or chrome tan like something like this. You can probably skive this a little easier. So if you're coming further, well, let's see, I got a piece over here. You can come further back, and vegetable tan leather will dull your blades like crazy. And sharpening, constantly sharpening is something you have to do. Get yourself a strop. I don't recommend the green one. This is old technology. They have some where you use paste on it. I use like a 6 micron paste, but this is just some old green where you rub the rouge on there. I wouldn't recommend that one. But as you can see, it made it a lot thinner. So when you double up on it, you don't get a real thick edge. It's early in the morning, so I need to get some water. Constantly keep talking. But you can see here, this one needs to be sharpened, but I'll try to show you on some of this vegetable tan the difference. Now with this one, like I said, you get more of an angle at it, and you'll come along here and just make your groove. Now you can go deeper, less of an angle, depending on how your groove comes out, is how the rest of it plays out versus the depth of it. See the difference? Oh, this one I went all the way, almost not quite through it, but just taking off the flesh. And this one I just took a little bit of the flesh off. But as you can see how thin it makes it. But did you see the difference too in cutting? When you're cutting, look at this leading edge here. It's rounded over, so it cuts into it like a rounded knife would, versus something like this. You've got to constantly monitor this edge here, otherwise it digs into it. So you got a little bit of angle, and this edge is somewhat not dug into it, so the pressure would be more here and less here. That's where so many people, when they buy these, they just get to skiving and they just push down, but it's just different pressures on it. They said you're gonna apply more of a pressure to the back side than the front. I recommend both of them. Like I said, this one's really good. I do like him. If you get either one, stick to it and learn the technique and practice with it. And that's it. Don't be buying a bunch of different ones and trying this and trying that. Learn what you have, especially with these. Because a lot of people will buy the cheap ones and they'll buy another cheap one and another cheap one and blame it on the tools. Like I said, I like this one and I like this one. They're both really good. You can't go wrong with either one. Skiving and cutting is the two things you do the most. Tooling, not everybody does tooling. You'll need a smooth surface to do skiving on. This little thin leather is also kind of stretchy. Some people will do, occasionally I'll put some glue, get you some, this is just regular glue, PVA glue, and I'll put some down on here, smear it around, and let it dry, completely dry. And then when you put your leather over it, it'll grip it. So it doesn't stretch it. I said you'll need a ruler in millimeters. I said I do like this. It's because what I'm used to using. Especially because I can use this 1.39, 1.4. I can use it for that. I use these in too for setting out holes. You know, if I gotta do stitching holes or something, I can use this in. If you could see that. So it comes in handy for multiple things. It's somewhat a personal preference, this versus a ruler. I do split the difference sometimes with it. If you're using stitching chisels, you know, and you're coming from this corner to this corner, but your chisels aren't lining up, and you need one more hole, then, you know, I can sit here and put this in, split the difference halfway, sit here, turn it around, mark it, and that'll give me it even, because it always doesn't always end. I like to start from the corner and work my way and choose an area where the off stitch is going to be, because if you put it in the corner, people will notice it right off in the corner. They won't notice a smaller stitch or a larger stitch elsewhere versus the corners. That's another thing I use for this. Right now, I don't want to drag this video out too long. I just wanted to show you a few things. Let me show you one more thing for cutting before we go. Let's get this thing out the way. They are quite heavy, so be prepared. I use these from Woodpecker. You can look them up, but these are real handy. Get some of this. This is Wicked and Craig vegetable tan leather. I really like their stuff. One thing I do too is, you can see how I'll put the other piece behind it. And I got these off of eBay from a machine shop that was selling their cutoffs. You can use it to hold your pieces down. You know, if you got to run one here, if you have a straight edge here, you can put your other piece here, turn, and then cut it. And you've got your corner piece there. Now, if you want to use, let's see, something like this. So if you got it here and you want to imagine this piece of leather a lot bigger. Here we go. I got something. This is your template, and you want to cut it off here. Well, you put a piece, you use one of these triangles here, and you hold it down. Well, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold it. You put that up to there, hold it down, Move this out the way. And cut it. And now you got your piece. The same length as this. The same thing if you wanted to cut out. Cut it out here. You push the leather up against it real tight. Put your template there. Hold it down. Now sometimes if you have more hanging off than this, it holds it a lot easier. So you may have to be like real careful when you're removing the pieces if it's small. You run this one to here. Like that. Almost 615. This is a lot bigger one. Same place. Just cut off scraps from a machine shop. It is brass. I believe this one runs about 4 pounds, a little over 4 pounds. I did use a hammer to texture it, hammer like this, and just went along and put this texture on it just to make it look cool. But this is how they come. I put a piece of leather on top and then on the bottom. But that's pretty much the gist of it. Like I said, if you're looking for something inexpensive to get started to, this one's a good one for like 60 bucks, 70 bucks. And that other one, this is a good one too for smaller, tighter spaces. I guess that this one I think was Artisan Leather Supply, I think. I said this one will get you, but it'll also run along the edge too if you let it out enough. You can put your finger, push the blade against the edge. You can run it right along the edge. And these are thick enough to do that with. But these tools are excellent low budget ones. So if you got any questions, leave some comments below. I'll see what I can do about answering them. And I'm going to get making this. This is a leather slip. They call it leather slips for pocket knives. This is a Great Eastern Cutlery pocket knife. And as you can see, this was the template for it. I did a video on making this one, so if you want to watch the video on making this one, you can go back and watch this one. This yellow stuff is lizard, ringtail lizard, iguana, stuff like that. But just making a template, and I'll show you how to make this template in that video. So if you want to learn how to do this too. And that's it for today as far as showing you all my cutting tools, how I cut, what I use to cut. And next time we'll get more into depth into stitching chisels, sewing awls. I have several different types of sewing awls. This one runs about $100, and the blades for them run about $50. The first one comes with a blade. After that, it's $50. So if you drop this on the floor, you're gonna hear $50 go ching, unless you can resharpen it. But chances are you do damage it on the tile floor, which I have done. So that's it for today. Hopefully this helps. I said that's all my cutting stuff I do use. And have a nice day. Get back with me. Go cut some leather.